Welcome back to Fantasy or Reality, the Gambling Problem Podcast. I'm your host, Steve. Welcome. Last time I placed a bet was May 2nd of 2021, and I'm glad you're here. In this episode, I'd like to talk about what it's like for someone when they're ready to stop, and they want to ask for help, but they just don't know what to do. So, you say to yourself, how many times, I'm ready to stop, finally. Now what? What do I do? And all I can really speak to is what has worked for me and what I've seen work for others. One thing that you need to know for yourself and you need to know as a family member, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but if not, the person that's gambling or the person with the addictive behavior, they need to want it for themselves. And that doesn't mean that the 100 times that we've tried to stop on our own, or different situations where we've tried to stop gambling or tried to stop our addictive behaviors, didn't mean that we didn't necessarily want it then. But you have to really, really understand that when you are ready to stop, you're going to have to completely surrender to the idea that we can no longer do these things anymore. And I use the word surrender because it's kind of used in 12-step programs, but I never really personally liked that because I feel like surrender means that you're kind of just giving up. And one of the issues I guess I had with the 12-step program was that I surrendered my, ability or desire or whatever it is to gamble or use drugs, and I was giving my will over to a higher power. And I'm great that that's worked for so many people, but for me, what worked for me, what worked for me was doing that thing, surrendering, understanding that I am no longer going to do this addictive behavior. I'm not going to gamble anymore, and knowing it's going to be difficult. But what helped me was knowing that I had the power in that process to be the one to kind of reclaim myself and rebuild myself and do that with the help of others. So, when you surrender, when I surrendered, right, when I stopped and understood I could no longer do this, that was on May 3rd of 2021. I had tried so many times before that, and it just didn't work. But I knew that once my wife had called me for that second time, and that it was all out in the open, and I had a choice to make. Am I going to keep doing this? Am I going to keep trying to hide this? Or am I going to do whatever it takes to finally stop? Am I going to take this chance, this opportunity to really surrender and do whatever I have to do to change? And at that moment, it was almost like the epiphany, or whatever you want to call it, but whatever it was, like throughout that first week, I decided that no matter what, that this was it. And in that moment, I knew that this was going to be a difficult task. I knew it was going to be hard to do. I knew that it was going to take a while. I knew that this was going to be a long process, and there was going to be a lot of pain. And I didn't know how difficult it was going to be until I got further into it. But once I surrendered to that idea that I'm going to do whatever it takes to change, I knew that that's what I was going to do. And unfortunately, the first year, a lot of people trying to make it through that first year, I think it's something like only 10% make it. So if you make that decision that you really want to change, and say you relapse in a week or a month or a year, don't get down on yourself. Don't get too crazy. Just take what you've learned in that time period and try to apply it to the restart, the reset. Do it again. Go back to your meeting. Tell the people in your life that you have had a relapse or whatever it is, and start again. It's not even starting over. You're just continuing on from where you're at. But once I surrendered to the idea that I was going to do whatever it took, no matter what, it was almost comforting. It was like having that huge weight lifted off my shoulders, and knowing that no matter what happened from this point this point forward, I was going to do whatever it took to reclaim myself, to become the better man that I knew I could be. And as difficult as that was, I did it. So the first thing I did after I recognized that and made that choice for myself, that no matter what, I'm going to push through, push forward, and I'm going to make this change. The first step I took, obviously, was telling my wife everything that I hadn't told her yet. It took some days to kind of get everything out, but I had to be honest with someone else about my gambling, about my addictive behaviors. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. And as difficult and as painful as it was to open up about a lot of these things and a lot of these feelings, and for the first time in our relationship, sitting down and opening up about these difficult emotions and crying and just breaking down and falling apart, I did that. So I would suggest finding someone in your life or a group of people in your life that you trust to open up to talk to them about this. Talk to them about what you did during your gambling. Talk to them about the feelings that you had. Open up. And as difficult as it may be and as embarrassing as it may be, I've noticed that in my life and others who have gone through the same thing, is the people that we think are going to judge us, that most of them don't. They may be angry, they may be disappointed and upset, which is normal, but they're not judging us. They just want us to be better. They want us to get better. So open up. Pick one person or a group of people, whoever you feel comfortable, the most comfortable in your life, talking to them about and opening up about this. That would be the first step I would take after coming to that decision that you are going to change, no matter what it takes. After that, I would suggest finding a support group that's right for you. For me, I tried GA, and like I said, I've tried GA and AA and NA and these things in the past, and they're great programs that work for millions of people. Unfortunately, it just didn't work well for me, and that's okay. And I'm really happy that it works for a lot of other people. But for myself, I found more success in online recovery groups that are more like support groups that don't follow the 12-step program. And there are a lot of them out there now. I'm starting one that's going to be starting April 5th, 2025. If you're interested in joining that meeting, send me an email and I can either send you a Zoom link, or if you're in the Saratoga, Albany, New York area, I can give you the address, or I'll put it at the end of the show. But I would suggest finding a support group of people who have gone through the same thing as you, or in different levels of recovery, and what they've done to change, because I think it's really important to also see further down the line. Like, it's important to see someone who's 6 months down the line, or a year down the line, or 5 or 10 years down the line, and see the possibility of what your life could be, or some semblance of what your life could be if you continue down this process. Because you want to know that at the end of all this work, and it's not even an end, as you get further down this road, that your life can improve and change. Because for so many of us, in the years of gambling and in the years of our addictive behaviors, we just think that this is who we are. We just think that we are this addict, we are this loser, we are this whatever. And it's hard to see any difference in our life, even in this, early on. Like, you're dealing with so much pain and unpacking all the emotion behind all the negative things that we did. It's really hard to see sometimes what can actually change for us. So it's good to talk to others and see what's worked for them, and just see that the life that you can rebuild. Like, right now, I'm almost 4 years in. If you would have told me 4 years ago that my life would be where it's at today, now, like, if you told me that 4 years ago, I would have never believed you. I couldn't stand myself. I hated who I was. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I've said this many times. I thought I was unworthy of the people in my life. And from what I've noticed, a lot of people feel that way, even if you're not a gambling addict or a drug addict. So don't feel alone in that. I feel like more people I've talked to, more stories I've listened to, so many of us feel unworthy and not good enough. That is a phrase I have heard so much over these last 4 years, that people don't feel good enough. People don't feel worthy. And that is, I couldn't even begin to figure out why that is, if it's social media, if it's the way that life is these days, or if it's just how our brains are hardwired right now, or evolution, whatever it is. So many of us feel less than and not good enough. So I don't know, I find it very important to find a good support group. And if the first group you go to doesn't work for you, that's fine. There are so many groups out there. Find people that you mesh with, that you click with, that you can connect with on a daily or weekly basis, and can really help you along the way and answer any questions you've had, and go it's really freeing to talk to another person that has been through and done the same thing as you, and you can see that they've come out the other side. There's definitely a group of guys I've met over the years that have done that for me, and I feel like I've done that for a few others, and I want to continue doing that. That's why I'm starting this group around here. I want to just try to pass along the message of hope, and that change is possible. That's why I do this podcast. That's why I continue to do this, and I will continue to do this, because 4 years ago I couldn't stand who I was. I couldn't stand where my life was at that point, and here I am today, proud of who I am, loving my life and my family and where we're at and where we're going. Just the other day, because of this whole thing that happened, my wife had gone into a program where she wants to pursue a career in being a therapist, because it helped us both so much. So she went through the last 2.5 years and finished her bachelor's degree, and she recently got accepted into a master's program for social work, and just found out that she was one of 25 out of 200 applicants that made it in. So she worked so hard. I am so proud of her. It's incredible where our lives are going, and I couldn't be more proud of where she's at right now. And just knowing that she would not be here either if this hadn't happened. Do I wish we could have gotten here without, all the lies and all the crap I did? Sure, but I've come to terms with the fact that it's just what happened. It doesn't make me a bad person. I've worked through a lot of the feelings that brought me through my addictive behaviors and my addictive pasts, and here we are today, where my life is going great, her life is going great, our life together is going great, our family is wonderful. People in our lives have been so supportive, and life is good today. And this would not be possible if it wasn't for the fact that I surrendered to the fact that I knew I had to change. If I didn't open up about my addiction, my gambling addiction, and if I did not find a good support group that really, really has helped me over these years. Other things to try other than that, after you've done that, after you've surrendered, after you've opened up to someone else in your life, after you've found the correct support group, there are other things that you can do that can help. Another great support out there, another great service, or whatever you want to call it, another tool that you can use is Reddit. There's the Problem Gambling subreddit and the Gambling Addiction subreddit. There are a lot of other people who have gone through the same thing, who are going through the same thing. You can go in there and interact with others at 24 hours a day if you want. And if you're not comfortable with showing your face at a meeting or on a Zoom screen, you can post on there, post how you're feeling, and you will always get an answer back from somebody. Another great thing that really helped me, that I've talked about over the years, is the one-on-one therapy. That's where I did a lot of the hard work, a lot more crying and figuring out why I was the way I was and how I became the person I was deep into addiction, and kind of changing those things and changing those patterns and working with my therapists, over a good 1.5 years where I was going pretty much every week. I would really encourage going to one-on-one therapy. There are a lot of programs out there that can help you get into therapy. A lot of times if you call your local gambling resource center, there are a lot of states that will pay for a certain amount of sessions depending on where you're at. I know here in New York, if you are unable to pay, the New York Council on Problem Gambling has the ability to help pay for those sessions. through funding through Oasis. So those are great tools I would really suggest. And if the therapist that you go to, you and that person don't fit, that's okay. Just try somebody else, move on to the next person, because once you find the right therapist, they really can be life-changing. If that doesn't work for you, there are peer-to-peer services. I'll go back again to the New York Council on Problem Gambling. They have a great person they contract with that has been a person who's had a gambling addiction and is in recovery, and they've gotten a certification to be a peer-to-peer counselor, similar to a counselor that would be in like an inpatient or an outpatient setting, but they are someone who's gone through lived experience themselves and has gotten this peer certification. So that is something you can do if you feel more comfortable talking to a peer one-on-one. A lot of times those you can find through your local gambling resource centers, so I would give that a try. Another thing I would really suggest listening to is, podcasts. You're here already, right? So I would suggest listening to other ones like All in the Addicted Gamblers podcast, the After Gambling podcast. There's the Broke Girl Society. That's a great one for females, for women who may have a hard time connecting with certain stories on an all-male podcasts, or it's good to hear other people who are in your situation. So if you're female, or you have a woman gambler in your life, I would suggest that they try the Broke Girl Society. Christina over there has a great support group. Also, I would suggest sending the women in your life to. And there are a number other of great recovery podcasts out there. Obviously YouTube, and I'm sure TikTok. I am not on TikTok. I'm not on social media. But I know that there are a lot of YouTube channels also that deal with addiction and recovery, like the Soft White Underbelly, and a number of other addiction podcasts / YouTube channels that are out there. It's great to listen to these stories, just once again to hear that there is a pathway to redemption. You can hear what others have done in their recovery, and you can hear others, you can hear the stories of others who have done the things that you've done, that we've done. Because like I've said before, I felt like, 4 years ago that I was the only one doing these things. I could not believe that I was addicted to FanDuel and DraftKings, playing daily fantasy sports. I could not believe. I thought that for whatever reason, in my warped mind, you'd be in a contest with over 100,000 people. I felt like I was the only one who was doing this irresponsibly. When really, if you think about it, I'm sure a large percentage of people in these contests have a problem gambling, or are teetering on that, or could easily become a problem gambler. So I would just suggest trying all these different tools. And if you're a family member who is desperately trying to get help for your family member, I would share this with them. I would go to the After Gambling podcast. There is a great podcast over there. I think it's episode 11 that is for friends and family. That is one of the best podcasts I've heard that explain what it's like for the gambler and for the family member, and what they can do to help. If the person in your life is gambling, or they're going through some kind of addictive behavior, and you've tried over and over again to help them and it just doesn't seem to work, I would suggest getting help for yourself. A lot of these programs also, like the New York Council on Problem Gambling, offer services for family members too. I can say that even though I'm a person who's in recovery and I've had my bouts of addiction with substances and gambling, I'm also a person who has family members in their life that have been or are in active addiction. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but I have been the family member who's dealt with, someone I care about that has off and on, or just, it's hard to ever get the truth, but they will never admit to their addictions, even with all of the evidence right there in their face. So, you can try and do everything you can. Send them these services, send them podcasts, do everything you can to help. But at some point, you need to take care of yourself also. Reach out for help. If you have to put healthy boundaries up, sometimes you need to take a step back. I've done that. I've taken a big step back when it comes to trying to help and being a big part of someone's life that, has a problem. And that's just what I would suggest to do. So, other than that, I really appreciate you listening. And if anyone has any questions, please reach out to me. But be good to yourselves and each other. Bye.